You've tamed the voices in your head. You've put your courage to the test. Laid all your doubts to rest.
Hi everyone, welcome from Your Intuition Queen, and this is a new episode of Intuitive Queens podcast, and I have the pleasure to have with me Sahara Rose, who is a travel coach. Hi Sahara.
Hi Mara, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. So when I heard that you're a travel coach, I was like, this is really interesting because it's like what it is, what do you do, how did you even get to become a travel coach? So tell us about everything. How did you start? What does that mean? What do you do?
Yeah, so I grew up as an only child to a single mom, and I always saw photos and movies and television shows of these beautiful destinations around the world. And I always had these big dreams of going to venture out and see what else was out there, but I never thought it would be possible for someone like myself because Brenda, we struggle to keep food in the pantry. We come from a middle to low class family. So I thought that only rich people were able to travel. You had to have a lot of money to go and see these incredible destinations. So I always had this innate desire to go and explore the world. But I never thought it would be possible. So in middle school, I decided to enroll in Spanish classes because my grandma's from Mexico. So I really wanted to really dive into the culture and the language. And we had to choose a country, a Spanish speaking country, to do a presentation on. So I chose Costa Rica because I fell in love with the lush greenery and the colorful tropical birds. And I'm a nature person. So that really stuck out to me. So I was falling in love with a country I'd never been to, but that I always imagined myself going to these beautiful destinations. So fast forward to college, it was my third year of university. I decided to enroll in a hospitality and tourism program. And it was on the very first day of my international tourism class that I decided that we went around the classroom and we had to introduce ourselves and say how many countries we had been to. And as everyone was saying numbers like 10, 15, 20, and even more, granted, a lot of the students were international or exchange students. And then there was my professor who had been to quite a bit himself in his lifetime. It got to me and I quietly whispered the number 3. And although it was the truth, I felt very inauthentic when I was sharing that number. And the reason being was because we had traveled every summer to my grandmother's family in Mexico, as well as my grandfather's family in Canada. And even though we had traveled a lot of summers, I didn't remember most of them because I was too young. And then the third destination had been the Dominican Republic. And the reason I didn't really feel very authentic saying that one was because it was an all-inclusive gated resort in the Dominican Republic where we were very sheltered from any cultural experience or having any raw experience with any part of the country. So I didn't feel like it was a very authentic experience that we had on this vacation. So even though I had said 3 and it wasn't a lie, it just didn't feel very truthful to myself because I knew there was so much more out of visiting a country than just going to a resort or and having an experience that you really remember for a lifetime. So it was on that day that I decided to make a pact with myself and I was going to figure out a way to go and travel the world. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't know. I was a struggling broke college student. I was paying $1,000 a month for rent in Chicago, and I had no one to turn to help me out with money. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I was going to figure out a way because my desire.
Sorry if I interrupt you. I like that you say that you made a pact with yourself.
Yeah.
Because I think that is really powerful. That is like where you commit yourself to do something, you really make it happen.
Yeah, I knew that I was going to have to depend on myself to make this dream come true, and I was going to figure out a way to do it. So therefore, I had to change the way my mindset on things. I had to change the way that I made and I saw and managed my money because money is a big factor in going to buy a ticket or get into a destination. So I was a full-time student at the time, but what I did was I filled the remainder of my time with ways to generate an income, whether that was going to a job or some other ways. So for instance, I picked up a few more jobs. I also picked up jobs that were very flexible. So I worked for temp agencies or event jobs where it was a good paying job, or maybe it was only a one-time job, or I could sculpt it and mold my own schedule. And and of course, I had a couple consistent jobs. But then I also found ways to make money and save money, such as I'm really big into art. So I'd sell paintings, or I would refurbish. We had a recycling room in my apartment building, and people would leave furniture all the time. So I would drag it up the elevator to my apartment, and I would fix it up, and I would paint it, and I would sell it online, and I
That's
would
amazing.
$2. I just found different ways that I can make money, but also ways that I really enjoyed. So I loved painting, and I loved art, and I loved fixing furniture and refurbishing things. So I also incorporated my interest in how I was also generating income. But also, I took a look at how I was spending my money. I looked at what bills I was paying or what expenses I had every month, and found where I could cut and limit my expenses. So I took what was necessary. And even that, like, even if I had a phone bill, I called and asked, are there any promotions going on where I can lower my bill? I knew that I wasn't really home very much because I was working so much, so I can cancel my cable and I watched shows online instead. I canceled my gym membership and I went for a run at the lake, but also my jobs got me very active as well. So I knew I didn't really have to have a gym membership. I looked at how much I was spending on groceries or on lunch, and I decided to pack my lunch myself instead of buying out and taking meals to work. So I really was changing how I manage my money. But really is a simple equation. You have to have more of an income than you have expenses, because that's where you're going to be able to grow your savings.
Yeah.
So that's what I essentially did was I grew my savings to a point where I felt comfortable enough to be able to pack a bag and go explore the world. So fast forward, or I graduated after 2 years of
One
entering.
question that I have there for you, because obviously when you're at college, like your way to communicate and to feel like you have a community, you have friends, is to go out with your friends that most probably weren't doing what you were doing. As much as being a student means being broke, but sometimes it's not necessarily meaning not doing anything or working so much. How did you cope with that? Did you feel like left out, or there was
Yeah,
something
so
that,
no, that's a great question, because that is very, very relevant, because people don't want to miss out. They want to go out and have fun with their friends. They want to have a social life. I get that. But I had jobs where that was included. So one of them was I worked in the restaurant industry, and in Chicago, it's a very lively restaurant industry. So I worked with my friends. So I was with my friends every day, and it was essentially like a party for ourselves. We worked quite late, but yes, they went out afterwards. But I was picking up a morning shift to make extra money. But I valued my vision and my dream more than going out for the night and spending money. But that's really another key component, because a lot of my friends were always broke, and we made the same amount of money. But it costs a lot of money to go out. But also, people have different interests. Some people prioritize their car.
But I
And
really like what you say about the fact that you valued your vision, because I think this is really important, and this is where a lot of people forget, or just do the wrong things, and like, oh, I wish I could do that, and then they spend money on something else, or they just don't take the right action. And for you, it's just a matter of really analyzing your life and your spending in this case, and restructure the way you were thinking, the way you were acting.
yeah, that's really important, because a lot of times, I always call them excuses. So people who want to travel the world or travel to any extent will have certain excuses, like I can't afford it, or I don't have time, or I don't want to go alone, or it's just not safe. And the reason I call them excuses is because they can be debunked, and they can be debunked because they have been proven otherwise. And it really is what you want. If you want to actually go on a trip or travel to whatever extent you're interested in, there are always ways to make that happen. But it's up to you to take the action and make certain sacrifices if need be, and prioritize. And sacrifices can seem like it's a daunting word, or it's really draining, you're giving up something you love. But you really have to value or weigh the value of what you're trying to accomplish or achieve. My vision to travel the world was more than just a getaway or a vacation for myself. I knew that I needed to go and travel the world because at 22 years old, when I graduated from university, I didn't know anything about myself. I didn't know anything about my life, what I wanted out of life, who I wanted to be. I hadn't had any experiences other than work in school my whole life. So I knew that traveling was going to be a key component to helping me figure out the rest of my life. That's not the path everyone's going to take, but you have to find things that are really going to inspire, influence you to help put you on the trajectory for the remainder of your life, whether that's helping you find your purpose and your passion in life, helping you figure out what kind of person you want to be and what do you want to contribute to society and the world. What is your vision and your long-term and short-term goals, and how are you going to get there? Travel was that for me. Travel I knew was going to help me find the answers that I was looking for at 22 somehow. I had no idea what it was going to lead me to, what answers I would find, or how long I would travel for, or anything. But that's part of the journey, right?
And that's an amazing awareness to have at 22, because you talked about vision and goals and how you want to feel and how you want to. And I think that when you are 22, it's not necessarily easy to think that way. You're probably more attached to think about what kind of job you're gonna get, or how much money you're gonna make, or what kind of things you want to have. And I think this is really powerful that you already had that vision of feeling goals and how this is going to help me understand myself.
Yeah, and especially because at that age, especially in the late university age, just graduating from university, that time in your life, it's really easy to, just like the whole part of your life before that, you were always doing what you're supposed to do. You were going what was family expected, what society expected. You have to go to school. You have to go now to this grade, or live in this area, or do this in life. Or there's always expectations that you had to do. But when you graduate from college, you're on your own. So you no longer have to listen to what family or society expects of you. And that's what I always knew, that I didn't want to do what everyone else was doing. I wanted, because that wasn't going to serve me any good. I wanted to find my own path, and I wanted to figure things out for myself. I had always been someone who always wanted to stand out from the crowd. I never really found interest or comfort in fitting in and doing what others were doing, whether that even meant I was by myself. I wanted to find what felt right for myself and what aligned with my own values in life and what made me happy. And what makes everyone happy is very different. And where everyone's vision and heart aligns in life is very different. And it's up to you to figure out your own path and your own journey in any way that feels right for you. And traveling and going and seeing the world was that for myself. I wanted to, so I decided to pack a bag. I booked my very first flight, which was to Ireland. And I went off and I saw the world. And little did I thought that was going to be my first trip. I thought I was going to do the Western European trip, and I would come back and I would find another job and I would find where I'm going to live. Little did I know, I fell absolutely in love with traveling, and for so many different reasons. And fast forward 10 years, I traveled over 80 countries by the time that I turned 30.
Wow.
And traveling was, I always say, my greatest professor in life. It has done for me far more, it exceeded my expectations far more than I had ever thought that it would. And not only had it helped me find the answers I was looking for about myself and what I wanted out of life and my passions and my purpose, but traveling is what essentially made me who I am today and my path to what I do today. And that's essentially what helped me become a travel coach.
That's beautiful, because like you found your way. And I think like the most difficult part probably is getting out constantly from your comfort zone, because if you're always traveling, you never know how you're going to react to a different country, a different culture. Were you always traveling by yourself, or were you organizing with other people?
I always traveled by myself. People always were asking, "Oh, do you ever feel lonely? Are you ever scared?" My answer is always no, because when you travel, you have an opportunity to shape the experience that you want. So when I wanted to be alone, I traveled, or I was alone. I booked private rooms. I stayed to myself. I did walked around towns by myself. But when I wanted to meet other people, which is a key component of traveling, is meeting new people and hearing new stories, which is another I absolutely love. And I would stay in hostels, or I'd stay in shared accommodations, or I would talk to people on a transportation I was on a bus or a train, or I would meet friends and we would, go for an excursion for the day or meet up every day for lunch. So you're always choosing what feels most comfortable for yourself, but that is where I always tune into my intuitive travel approach, which is you have to identify within what are you even looking for out of this experience. Do you need time alone? Do you want to Are you yearning for a connection with somebody? Do you need to interact and engage, or do you need to spend time at a serene lake by yourself, just journaling or doing some self-reflecting? What is it in life that you're looking for? Because that is what's going to help shape the experience to be the most memorable one that you can have and the most effective one that you can have. Because travel really can be such a powerful tool on
Yeah.
your mind, body, and your soul for your everyday, for your life in general, but only when you do it in a very effective and thoughtful way.
I like what you just said, because like being like conscious is what you need. And I think like for most parts, people just go by either destination or budget, and then they choose where to go. And you are talking about a different way of thinking about traveling, which is more about, this is what I need, and this is where I'm going to go, and this is the kind of experience I want to have and I'm going to have. um, that's beautiful. I really like this. But you said you've been doing this for 10 years and you now are a travel coach. How did you manage yourself work wise? Because like, how did you make money if you were always traveling? Because obviously traveling means spending money most of the time.
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a common question people always have. Was I honestly never worked while I traveled for 10 years. Not saying in 10 years I didn't work, but during my travels for 10 years, I never did anything while traveling that earned me money. What I did was I would go on certain trips for this different lengths. So sometimes I would have gone for anywhere from like 2 weeks to sometimes 6 months. But I would always do it with strategy. So I moved in and out of Chicago 3 times. I knew that it was a place I could always find work. Um, and when I did leave, if I was leaving for a long period of time, I would make sure my lease was up, or I would sublet my place and I would move my belongings to my mom's house, which was close by, because I knew that I didn't want to spend a chunk of rent money while I was traveling, because I could use that otherwise. I would always know, I would look at my bank account and give myself a certain limit. So it really is key, is that savings. That has what enabled me to be able to travel the world and also start my business funding myself.
Mm.
So I worked my butt off in my college years and changed the way I saw and managed my money. And that savings has been my cushion for myself. So I would always look at that savings and give myself certain limits and say, okay, I'm going on this trip for X amount of time. When my account gets to about right here, I'm going to start thinking about what is my next steps to take. Should I return home? Should I go and find a job? Should I find a job that I can do from the computer? What can I do that is going to make me feel financially secure again? But I never let myself get to a place where I ran out of money, I went broke, I didn't have any, or that I got myself in a place where I couldn't fulfill the remainder of my dreams. I never allowed that to happen because I managed my money properly. and
Mm.
for me properly, what felt right for myself. And that's as I think a lot of people go wrong is
Yeah.
they don't have enough savings. They're always living either from paycheck to paycheck because they never managed their money well enough, or their income was never more than their expenses, and that's where it can get you. So, um, being able to budget really well, and then I budget traveled.
Mm.
That's another thing that a lot of times people really undervalue, which is how much of an experience that you can have from traveling on a budget. And what I mean by that is choosing budget accommodations. That doesn't mean you're sleeping in dirty, cockroach filled, bug bed filled hostels that are unsafe. Actually, it's the opposite. I've stayed in really beautiful places that are hostels. But every country is different. So some
Mm-hmm.
places you can find accommodations for a couple bucks a night in a room. Sometimes you'll luck out and you'll have the whole room to yourself because it's off season and you only paid $5. And I traveled on bus. I looked at what is the best way to travel around that region. Every region's different. Europe for me was quite pricey with trains. So I found the bus system, which was fantastic, and I was able to book it from an app. And it was like I can go from Madrid to Toledo for round trip and spend the day in Toledo for like $12. So it really is you changing the way you see things. Sometimes people have this ego and they say, well, I'm not going to travel cheaply, or I'm not going to travel and risk jeopardize my comfort level or my safety. And that's not the case. For someone who has traveled the world as a solo female, I'm here to sit and say, like, traveling is not unsafe, and it doesn't have to be uncomfortable, and it doesn't mean that you have to do everything that I did, like sleep in airports. But there are ways to better balance your
Yeah.
budget when you travel. Maybe you would have a little bit cheaper of an accommodation, and you would go on more excursions and do more things or spend more money otherwise. Maybe your flight was a little bit more pricey, but then you saved money here. So it really is finding this balance for yourself so that you can have more experiences and more travel in your life. Sometimes people only think that they can have one trip a year because it costs so much, or that they have to
Yeah.
use a travel agent, which can cost quite a bit sometimes. And that gives them a bad taste in their mouth that they have to do this same process every time, and it's just not attainable for
Mm.
themselves.
I really like that you touch upon being a female solo traveler and safety, because I know this is a big topic and a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not going to do this because that's not safe, and I really like, and you've been to a lot of places, and I'd like you to talk a little bit more about being a female and traveling around the world by yourself, and how you manage yourself in terms of safety and feeling also good where you were and enjoy the experience.
Yeah, that's also a very common question I get asked a lot, but it really is very similar to how I decided to even take this path in life in the first place. I listened to my gut, and that's a really important thing to do in many senses of your life. I Traveling as a solo female, it's really important to be hyper aware of your surroundings, more so than if you're with other people or if you're a man. But that's something that is just reality. You have to always be very aware. Um, Listen to your gut too. When things don't feel right, take action. If you don't feel comfortable in a certain town, go to a next town. If you don't feel comfortable in the accommodations you're in, make a change. If you don't feel comfortable taking a taxi, if it's not, do a little bit of research. See what is the safest way to do things. For instance, I always, when I book an accommodation, I send an email to where I'm staying and I say, I'm coming into this airport around this time. What's the best and safest way for me to get to your accommodations? And they usually give you really good advice. Do a little bit of research, see
Mm-hmm.
if it's okay to take an Uber where you're at. What time are you arriving? Is it okay to take a taxi in that destination? Sometimes, like places like Bogota in Colombia, probably not the safest to take taxis, especially if you're a girl or if you're late at night. So, what feels right for yourself? What do you feel confident enough to go and do? And that's why a lot of times people overlook them. They don't
Mm-hmm.
make these decisions intuitively until very last minute. And then sometimes it's too late. I have met Granted, I travel the world. I've met thousands of people. I've heard a lot of really bad stories of traveling. I could always pinpoint where they went wrong. Sometimes someone was going to an ATM at 2 in the morning. Sometimes they were had all their wallet out when they're paying their taxi driver. All their money was exposed. So it's being really mindful of these type of things, knowing that this probably is not the best idea to do at this moment. So, but that's being hyper aware of the destination you're in. If you're in a busy marketplace, I always carry a string backpack with me. I carry all my valuables, my passport. I sometimes have an iPad, my phone, any important, my credit card, my wallet in there. I never leave it anywhere else unless, like, if I go on a water excursion, then I'll lock it up in my suitcase. But other than that, I have it all with me because for me, I feel more comfortable knowing that I have control over what's most important to me. And when I'm in a busy marketplace or a busy street, then I put it to the front of me. So I have full control over my security blanket. This is what I need. What you don't, for everything else, if someone wants to take my clothes or it gets lost or the airline loses it, that's fine. But make sure that you have what feels comfortable and right for you with you at all times. That's where people might say, well, I don't want to carry all my money with you. But for me, honestly, you shouldn't be carrying a lot of money with you anyways. Everywhere accepts credit cards these days, pretty much. There's ATMs. If there's fees, find a bank that has, my bank reimburses ATM fees or has a lower ATM fee. So there's always ways to go about it. Withdraw money as you go. So I'm never feeling like I'm scared because I have so much money on me. What if I get robbed or whatnot? But just being aware of your surroundings. If you don't, if you like to go for runs, go at a decent time or go take a partner with you. I remember traveling in India and it was my first time in Mumbai and it was a very overwhelming city to be in, especially for a girl and by myself. So I didn't feel the most comfortable even just walking around town to go sightsee. So I met a couple people in my hostel and they were guys and I stayed with them. So we always made sure we were back before nighttime, which is what I do by myself anyways, in a place that can be quite overwhelming. Make sure I'm back before night falls and I don't leave until the morning. So it really is making these conscious decisions to make yourself the most safe. I'm not a huge partier drinker when I travel because I never want to feel out of control or depend on someone else to take care of me. So that has never been in my plans. Granted, yes, I have done a lot of fun things traveling and very social things, but that doesn't mean you have to get to the point where you're not control or you're not aware of yourself. And that's something I've seen a lot from other travelers because they can get like so excited that they're in a new place or a party hostel or something like that. But you have to remember that these people are all just new to you. They really don't care, for the most part. I mean, not saying that people don't care about you when they travel, they do, but you really do have to have the mindset that you have to take care of yourself. So just
it's common sense at the end of the day, you're in a different country, you don't know how to behave properly. I mean, like, you don't know how to react to certain situations. So the least you can do is just behave in a safe manner.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just being mindful of the culture and the way things are. Some countries, like, the men can be a little bit more expressive to women. Being mindful of that. And if that doesn't make you comfortable, then make a friend, a guy in a hostel or a group of girls in a hostel or whatever it might be, or go to find a couple cafes that you really enjoy or places you really enjoy that do make you comfortable. Or if you're just not comfortable there, go to a next city, so just making decisions that, like you said, are common sense and that feel right for yourself. Always listen to your gut, which is something I have always done traveling. And it really has always just steered me in the right direction because even if you were wrong and something was okay, which it most likely will be, at least you took action and you made yourself feel mentally okay. And therefore, because all that's going to affect your experience. A whole trip can be ruined by getting mugged on a bus or something. My mom's friends actually just were in where were I think it was London actually, and they were mugged on the train. And they had this beautiful whole multi-trip experience beforehand, but that one thing where she didn't protect her purse in a busy train really like hit hard for their experience and they just wanted to go home. And
Yeah.
I've seen that with people. So you have to be really mindful of everything. You cannot assume that your possessions are always going to be okay or no one's going to care about something. You know, I've seen people leave their passports and their money out in their rooms and it's gone. You have to remember there's no protocol in a lot of these countries. So it's really your word against theirs. So
Yeah.
you might as well just give it over. So it's really just being very protective over your things, but in a very respectful way too of the culture, and just be aware.
Yeah. And I think, that's what people should be doing naturally, like even if you're in your own country, in your own city, when you're in a place where there are a lot of people, it's crowded, you just have to be careful. And
Yeah.
especially when you go in a country that you don't know, where they speak a language that you don't know, and it's not easy for you to know what to call, what to do. And yeah, absolutely.
And really, it's common sense. Like like sometimes people ask me if I'm scared traveling, and I say sometimes living in Chicago or in places in the U.S., I'm more afraid leaving my job at 3 a.m, commuting home on the train than I am in foreign countries. But it's the very same thing. Anything can happen anywhere.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter, even if you're just traveling. It could be in your hometown. Just being mindful of where you are, your surroundings, your belongings, and and just using common sense.
Yeah, and use your senses, because we have them for a reason, and sometimes it's what really tells us what's out there. And be careful, don't take that route to go somewhere else. Amazing. So how do you, what does being a travel coach mean? What do you do? Who do you help, and how do you help your clients?
Yeah, so I started off just providing free services and information. So throughout my travels, I had a blog where I would just provide whatever information I had traveling, how I was able to do it, everything, like the popular questions you asked me, because people wanted to be able to incorporate more travel into their life as well. So I would just do it free, just because I absolutely loved sharing my information and helping people. But I knew that I was so passionate about it. I could talk about travel forever. And that's why I knew that it was something I had to make into a career path for myself. But I didn't know exactly what, where, how, or anything. So I didn't even think about the word travel coach even over a year ago, because I never heard about it before. I didn't know anything about it. I knew what existed in the travel industry. And for jobs, I knew people were travel agents. I knew people could book trips for corporate travelers. I knew people who traveled in the digital nomad craze were like freelancers or travel bloggers, but none of that really resonated with me. And again, this is just like I said, after graduating from university, I wanted to create my own path that felt right for myself, even though I had no idea what it was. I had no clue what I wanted to do or what I could call it. So I decided I knew that if I wanted to have this career, I was going to have to create it myself, because it wasn't anything that I knew existed. I didn't want to also work for, a lot of people said, why don't you work for a company that pays you to travel? That didn't align with me, because I knew that I wouldn't have the experiences of the places I went to if I was traveling for business for another company or someone else. So that I knew was checked off, and I was like, no. So I knew I had to create something myself. So because I had no idea where to start or what it was, I had to learn what were people doing who started a business in general. So I started studying just how to start a business online. I looked at what people were doing. I found mentors or coaches online. I found anyone who gave me any sort of inspiration. I listened to every podcast, video, YouTube that I could hear, anyone who gives some sort of inspiration on business, life, purpose, anything. And I took notes. I started taking all these notebooks. And then I realized, like, Facebook caught on to me with its algorithm, and it saw that I was looking at business type of things. So it started pushing all these coaches at me, all these life coach, health, fitness, all these coaches that exist. And I knew that none of them were doing what I wanted to do, but I could still learn what they were doing to, provide services, how they were even a coach in general, where did they start. So I started just researching and listening to their webinars, downloading their freebies, just filling my mind with information. And for me, because I saw this rise in the coaching world, I knew that, hey, this must be what I want to be because I combine coaching with travel. So the coaching world is really big and I align with how they help people, but in my niche is the travel industry. So I put it together and I said, I'm a travel coach. But then I hit another roadblock because I didn't have anyone to turn to say, how do I become a travel coach? How do you start a travel coaching business? So again, I'm a problem solver myself and I do a lot of things on my own. I decided to create that solution for myself. So using all the research that I did and everything I learned from these other coaches, mentors, everything in business, I created what's called the Travel Coach Network. And I created a program that I did essentially what I did to start my own travel coaching business. So essentially what a travel coach is someone who's a passionate traveler that finds what they know most and best about travel and what resonates most with themselves. So based on their own stories and experiences, expertise, and they help others that best connect with them. So for instance, I there's I was starting to get questions from just general travel questions from people who were like moms who were traveling with their kids, or they were couples that traveled, or they were retired and they were in their 60s and they were traveling. People would come to me and I didn't have these specific answers for themselves because I couldn't connect and relate to them. I didn't have those particular experiences or knowledge, but I knew traveling that I had met so many other travelers who could answer those questions. So I wanted to find a way where someone like that, a traveler with specific expertise, could help those who wanted to best learn from them. And so that is where I not only find my niche, which is in more towards the wellness side of travel, because I believe so deeply in the power of travel on the mind, body, and the soul, and ultimately the workplace. But I wanted to help others find their niche and path as travel coaches and help those people who best relate to them. So travel coaches it's a pretty general term because everyone is so different. And even though travel seems like it's a niche, it really is a very diverse industry. There's so many different things to know and skills to have in the travel industry. And I wanted to bring that out of people, especially women, because when I started studying, I started studying even more about the travel industry. I always say you don't know what you don't know. So I dove deep into the wellness industry, to the corporate world, which is something I never went down, but I knew that there were problems that existed in them. And also into the business traveler industry, because I remember sitting on a plane one time next to a business traveler, and he was so envious of my stories. And here sat a man who had everything on paper that was perfect: a wife, a family, travel for business, a lot of money, a great position, and he was really unhappy in what he was doing. And he was so in awe of my story and my journey as I'm here a backpacker with my dirty backpack on. And I knew there must be a better balance. So I knew that if I found these voids and problems that existed in the industry and in these different fields, that I could use what I knew most and best about travel, and meaning that it is a very transformative tool for somebody, that I would be able to really make a difference and an impact that I was looking for from the very beginning when I graduated from college. I was looking for a job that enabled me to make some sort of difference in an industry that I love so much. And that is what led me to what I do today with the Travel Coach Network, with the programs that I create for the corporate world, for wellness programs, for business travelers. And that is what I want other women and travelers to do, is just really hone in on your story and what matters most to you and how you can make a difference in an industry that you're most passionate about. And that could be combining industries. Like I said, the wellness industry. A lot of people are into diet and exercise and yoga and meditation, but they love travel as well. How can you combine these and make a difference that makes you stand out? And to pave your own path in an industry and a lifestyle that feels right for yourself, not what everyone else is doing because it's already done and it seems like it's doable.
Yeah. I love that because, like, and as you said, there are so many different ways of traveling, and also I feel also a lot of different reason, and I feel like especially when something happens to you, you have to take your mind off. I heard a lot of stories of people just going traveling for as long as possible to really, as you tried at the beginning, to find yourself, but also maybe to forget what happened. And then there are a lot of different reasons why. So I think this is fantastic, and you managed to find the right thing for you, just getting all the information that you need. And I think here is where the difference between people that find excuse and people that have an objective, a goal, a vision, and they hone into it and keep on getting information and find what is it that they're looking for, and they try and they try and they try until everything gets together. And I think this is really powerful, and I really like that you talked about strategy and money and traveling by yourself and all these things. As you said, you can have everything but being happy because you can't move from your place, or you cannot travel as much as you like. Because I think that in the travel there is a lot of freedom, and this is what a lot of people crave and would like to have. I think this is really beautiful.
Thank you. I'm glad
Yeah.
to share with you.
Yeah, no, I think this is a really a different way of thinking about traveling, and a different way of thinking. I think right now we are in a space and time where we all look for mind, body, and spirit in a completely different way. And of course, traveling is in there. So, which I
Yeah.
think it's the embodiment of all the three of them. Okay, well, um, we're almost towards the end. Before we go, I'd like you to, based on your personal experience, but also based on the clients that you have, what is that one thing that you would suggest, or the advice that you would like to give to people listening and watching, and in general to everybody that might be feeling uh, traveling is not for me, or I don't have the money, or any possible excuse that might come up?
Yeah, just really making setting a goal for yourself. So even if you don't have a specific time that you know that you're going to be able to go on a trip, just starting the planning process. Science says that even the planning process of travel really boosts your happiness and your these endorphins in you that get you excited and boost your your emotional stability. So just even just starting a planning process, creating a vision board of where you want to go and what kind of experiences you want, and then really just tuning into your inner self and asking yourself, what am I struggling with most in life? Where are my stresses coming from? And identifying and addressing what health concerns you might have, anything that might be limiting or hindering you from going on a trip. So sometimes people who might have a disability or a certain health condition might say, oh, it's better if I don't go because I don't know what might happen. But if you address anything that might be holding you back from going on a trip, and that could be financially, relationship wise, work wise, health wise, personally, anything, mentally, and you address these, put things on paper, and then pick them one by one and say, how can I either improve this and work on this? So let's say it's work. If you feel like your workload is too much, you can't have time off, manage that better. See how you can delegate, or talk to your manager and see what you can work out. If you have, see how much paid time off you have left, or vacation days you have left, or if they offer any sort of volunteer abroad opportunities. When you are able to identify these things, then you're able to see what kind of experience that you're looking to have, because therefore it's more than just a vacation you're trying to go on. This is actually something that's going to improve you in your daily life and in your work life. So it's actually going to benefit you in some way to go on it, versus the opposite. If you don't go on a trip, make a list of what's going to happen if you don't go on a trip, and see and weigh those pros and cons. And I guarantee you're going to be so much better off if you do go on the trip and you're in tune with yourself to figure out, what is it do I need to work on this trip? And that's going to help you better plan where to go, when to go, who to go with, what kind of activities to do, how much to spend on this trip. And you're going to feel more involved, which is also something that's going to make you feel even more empowered on your trip, because you are part of the planning process. So these are all things to keep in mind. And just like I said, even if you have no idea when you could possibly go, just start that planning process. Put a journal aside that's dedicated just to traveling. Put a vision board together just for traveling, and get your mind thinking on these different things, and be sure to tune into your inner self so that you can have these transformative experiences that travel is capable of providing for your life.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Sarah. And I think, once you travel, also your energy changes and you come back, you're refreshed. So why not doing it properly, and why not doing it when you can have the best experience possible instead of just going somewhere just for the sake of it? Absolutely. Thank you so much. Now, just tell us where we can find you, and if you have anything going on, and tell us all your details. So I will put them below here and in the show notes for everybody to go check them out.
Yeah, thank you. Well, my website is thetravelcoachnetwork.com. You can find me on Instagram as well as Facebook at Sahara Rose Travels. But also, if you are a passionate traveler, or you're looking to figure out what you could possibly make an impact in the travel industry, or focus your ideas, if you've already always thought of different things you can do but never knew how to put those pieces together, I do have the Travel Coach program. And right now I am still looking for founding members of it, which means that I'm giving you personal time to work one-on-one to help you go from just an idea to actually starting your own business in the travel industry, to whatever feels right for you and aligns with your values, your vision, and your passion for travel.
Perfect. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being here, Sarah. It's been such an interesting conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I've had so much fun.
And thank you everybody for watching and for listening. If you need to get in touch with Sahara, again, all the notes will be in the show notes, the details in the show notes and below. Otherwise, you can get in touch with me and I will direct you to her. Just go to The Intuition Queen. You can find me everywhere on every social media, or just find me on my website, theintuitionqueen.com, and you can ask me everything and I will direct you to Sarah if you miss any of the details below. And thank you everybody for watching and listening, and I'll see you and talk to you next week. Bye. Bye, Sarah. Thank you.
Hi, thank you.
Your mind is clearer than before. Your heart is full and wanting more. Your future's at the door.